It is now 6:32, and we are learning some new information this morning about a man Army officials say shot up a Texas military base. The question now, were there warning signs that the Army veteran was about to turn violent? 4 people, including the suspected gunman, are dead. 16 others were flown to Texas hospitals after injuries from that shooting at Fort Hood. Reporter Polo Sandoval is at the base right now gathering the newest information.
The sprawling Army post in Fort Hood, Texas is yet again the scene of a shooting. This time, authorities say an Army specialist killed 3 people before turning his gun on himself. 16 others were wounded. The base commander says Specialist Ivan Lopez opened fire in one building, then continued firing while driving to another. Military police caught up to him as he started shooting in that second building. Lieutenant General Mark Milley says Lopez took his own life when a military police officer confronted him.
It was clearly heroic, what she did at that moment in time, and she did her job, and she did exactly what we would expect of a United States Army military police.
Ivan Lopez had only been stationed at Fort Hood since February and had previously served 4 months in Iraq. Military officials say Lopez was being treated for depression and anxiety and was being evaluated for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Obviously, we are digging deep into his background, any criminal history, psychiatric history, his experiences in combat.
Neighbors tried to console Lopez's wife.
She was worried and she was crying, and she had a little girl with her. So, I walked over to her and, I tried to console her and comfort her and let her know everything was okay. But it didn't seem to, pretty much, sink in. As far as I knew, he was a nice guy. He's always smiled and waved, and that's about it.
The shooting bears a sad resemblance to the 2009 mass shooting at the same post when Major Nidal Hassan killed 13 people and injured 32 others. He's now on death row.
CNN's Polo Sandoval joins us this morning live from Fort Hood, Texas. Polo, lay out the scene for us right now. Is there heightened security on that base this morning?
At this point, guys, we are basically at the outer perimeter of the gate, so it's very difficult to get closer to actually see the crime scene itself, to see any potential security increases there. What I can tell you is that there was extreme security in the moments following the shooting, and so much so that it was locked down for several hours. Eventually, the all-clear horns sounded, allowing people to go either in and out of the post. Rather, we are also learning more about the alleged shooter behind this, Army Specialist Ivan Lopez. We are now learning that investigators were digging into his past all night. We can tell you he was a father, he was a husband. Well, he was also a former vet who opened fire on his fellow soldiers. We can also tell you that at one point, sometime after 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, he used his personal .45 caliber handgun to open fire, killing 3 people, wounding at least 16 others, and then eventually turning the gun on himself, fatally wounding himself after going face-to-face with some military police officers. But back to that question again, we haven't seen any obvious increased security from our vantage point. You can imagine, if you see behind me, there's plenty of members of the media that are being kept at the outer perimeter. You can imagine just beyond this post, it is considered a crime scene, so they are being very strict as to who can either go in or out of Fort Hood this morning.
Although 4 dead, including the gunman, 16 injured. I know there are 2 different hospitals, one on the base right there. Any updates on any conditions, how serious these folks are?
At this point, authorities haven't released any updates quite yet. We do expect new information to come in within the next few hours. We do know that they are recovering at several area hospitals. Their injuries range from minor bullet wounds to, of course, perhaps critical life-threatening injuries. Eventually, we should be getting a tally from authorities to make sure that that death toll still remains unchanged, and of course to see if anybody has actually even been discharged from the hospital. But again, all that information continues to change. A reminder, we're just over 12 hours since this happened, so you can bet there's more questions and answers at this point here on this Central Texas Army base.
All right, Polo Sandoval joining us live from Fort Hood. We appreciate your time this morning. Certainly a lot more that we are expecting to get out of Texas as the day continues. But of course, this story is capturing people's attention all across the country.
It's making headlines in newspapers nationwide. We start with the Chicago Tribune. The headline here, Fort Hood soldier kills 3, wounds 16 before taking own life.
The USA Today posting several stories about this shooting. The first headline focusing on the facts. The second, a look back. It says Fort Hood shooting comes less than 5 years after attack. The paper is referencing the 2009 shooting at Fort Hood that killed 13 people.
Yeah, so soon after the last time. And a sad picture showing people on the base fronts the Dallas Morning News as well. The paper reads, 4 killed, more than a dozen wounded in Fort Hood shooting.
The investigation into this is just beginning, as we've heard, and as we learn new details here on 10 TV, we will of course pass them on to you, both on the air and online at 10tv.com.